A female officer was attacked by a wild beast deep in the forest. Sheriff Sully called out anxiously over the radio, but there was no response. By the time Sully arrived with his team, the officer had already become the beast's meal. Judging by the massive claw marks on her car, Sully suspected the culprit was an enormous grizzly bear. Recently, the town had been plagued by frequent animal attacks. To protect the safety of the townspeople, Sully sent a group of experienced hunters into the mountains to track and kill the beast. In order to cover more ground, the hunters split up after entering the forest. Michelle, following tracks on the ground, began setting up a bear trap. Suddenly, startled birds burst out of the trees. Michelle immediately sensed something was wrong. She could feel the ground trembling beneath her hands. Terrified, she stood up at once and looked around. And then, out of nowhere, a massive grizzly bear appeared right in front of her. In a moment of crisis, Rowan fired several shots in rapid succession, finally scaring the grizzly bear away. Worried that it might return, he quickly helped Michelle to her feet and led her away from the area. That night, the group started a fire and set up camp deep in the forest. Rowan took the first shift to stand guard, but as the night wore on, the temperature dropped sharply, leaving him shivering with cold. He glanced around the dark woods, thinking it was safe, and decided to return to the tent. Unbeknownst to him, the grizzly bear was still lurking nearby. Back in the tent, Rowan and his girlfriend Kaylee were just about to settle in for the night, when suddenly, the grizzly crashed through the tent, snatched Kaylee, and began dragging her outside. In a moment of desperation, Rowan finally managed to pull Kaylee back to safety, foiled in its sneak attack. The grizzly bear quickly fled into the woods. Rowan and Pike raised their rifles and fired at the beast, but their aim was so poor that the bear easily escaped. This terrifying encounter made one thing clear: the bear wasn't just dangerous, it was smart. Too smart for them to handle alone. So at daybreak, the group packed up and prepared to leave the forest immediately. But what they didn't realize was that the cunning grizzly was silently tracking them from behind. Luckily, Pike, who was walking in the rear, sensed something was off. He turned around, and to his shock, the massive bear was right behind them. Pike quickly pulled out his handgun, firing shots while shouting for his companions to run. But up ahead, the trail ended at a cliffside waterfall. With the bear pressing closer, they had no choice but to edge forward carefully. Just then, the bear suddenly rose on its hind legs and let out a furious roar. Startled, Kaylee looked back and slipped, tumbling down the slope. Unlucky Kaylee had been impaled through the calf by a wooden spike. Her companions rushed down the slope to help. Rowan was horrified by the sight, but he still tried to comfort Kaylee, telling her everything would be okay. They tore open her pant leg and prepared to cut away the spike. Rowan pulled out a small knife and got ready to begin, but just then, a thunderous bear roar echoed from behind them. They immediately realized the grizzly had caught up. Despite her injury, Kaylee didn't hesitate for a second. She told them to pull her leg off the spike immediately. If they waited, the bear would catch all of them. Rowan was reluctant, but deep down, he knew she was right. It was the only way. Gritting her teeth through the pain, Kaylee yanked her leg free. Rowan quickly wrapped Kaylee's leg with strips of cloth to stop the bleeding. The group wasted no time and helped her limp away as fast as they could. By nightfall, they stumbled upon a small wooden cabin deep in the forest, but the moment they stepped inside, they were all stunned. The walls were lined with severed bear paws. It was immediately clear this was a poacher's hideout, but the poacher hadn't gotten away clean either. What was left of him had been gnawed down to bare bones. Out in the backyard, piles of black bear carcasses lay stacked. Only then did the group finally understand the truth behind the recent animal attacks. The grizzly wasn't just hunting, it was out for revenge. Just as the group was setting up camp for the night, a sudden gunshot and a bear's roar echoed in the distance. Rowan and Pike immediately ran toward the sound. By the time they arrived, all they found were blood-stained clothes on the ground, and a pair of shattered glasses. Pike instantly recognized them. They belonged to an old hunter from their town. It was clear he hadn't made it. When they returned to the camp, everyone agreed there was no point resting anymore. Getting out of the forest had become their top priority, but considering Kaylee's injury, Rowan made a decision. He would stay behind to distract the grizzly. He first smeared the bloody bandage across his shirt. Then he placed the shirt beside a dead tree to lure the grizzly. Next, He found a hidden spot nearby to wait for the bear to take the bait. Sure enough, the grizzly picked up the scent of blood and came charging in. Rowan raised his rifle and fired, but the shot missed its vital mark. Instead of killing the bear, he only scared it off. When Rowan chased after it, he quickly realized the bear had vanished. Panic set in. Rowan turned and ran, but the grizzly wasn't far behind, closing in fast. Just as it was about to catch him, Rowan dove into a pile of deadwood, desperate to hide. The grizzly's roar echoed through the forest. Meanwhile, the three who had fled believed Rowan was right behind them. They shouted his name into the trees, but the grizzly heard them and suddenly changed direction. Now it was chasing after their voices. Terrified, the group bolted deeper into the woods, but ahead of them, thick fog began to rise. Michelle and Pike, who was carrying Kaylee, ended up running in opposite directions. When Michelle finally looked back, she realized her companions were nowhere in sight. Fear gripped her, and she was on the verge of tears. She wanted to call out for them, but she was too afraid it might attract the grizzly, so she could only stumble through the forest, alone and in silence. Just as the grizzly was about to lunge at Michelle, Pike finally arrived. He pulled out his handgun and fired at the beast, but his aim was still awful. He didn't land a single shot. At that critical moment, the old hunter suddenly appeared. He raised his rifle and fired at the grizzly, but the bear swiped him with one massive paw, slamming him to the ground. Just like that, the old hunter was gone. The three of them had no choice but to flee deeper into the forest. They ran as fast as they could, and before long, they finally made it out of the woods. There, by the riverbank, they spotted an inflatable kayak. At that moment, Sully emerged from the woods. He had been unable to reach them, so he took the kayak to come looking. When Pike asked Sully about the poachers, Sully suddenly pointed a gun at him. As the two faced off, the massive grizzly suddenly charged out, fiercely attacking the frail old Sully. Pike quickly ran to the kayak to find a weapon. Just then, Rowan, who had miraculously survived, drifted to the spot following the current. Pike grabbed 2 cans of gasoline and ran toward the bear. Rowan shouted loudly at the grizzly to draw its attention, but Sully was still bitten to death by the bear. Taking advantage of the moment, Pike poured gasoline all around the grizzly, then fired a flare to ignite it. As the flames trapped the grizzly, the group seized the chance to board the boat and prepare to escape, but the enraged bear stomped through the fire, chasing after them. With a single swipe, it knocked them off the boat. Then it turned its attention to the injured Kaylee. In the critical moment, Pike finally grabbed a dropped axe. Furious, he charged at the bear and swung the axe hard. The grizzly howled in pain and slapped Pike away. Even angrier, it turned to attack Rowan. During the struggle, Rowan found a hunting knife on the ground. He seized the moment and plunged the knife into the bear's carotid artery. Finally, the grizzly was taken down. Pike helped the injured Rowan to his feet. After countless dangers, the group had escaped the bear's clutches. At last, they could head home safely.